Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm Tom Shawcross, licensed agent with Second City Real Estate. With me, as always, Mark Ainley, co-founder of GC Realty. Mark, I don't know when this will air, but we are either planning an event or going to plan an event for getting all our listeners back face to face. Are you excited about this? This was your brainchild.
Well, I'm excited about it. You know, we had the 100th episode party, and that was a blast. It was only like 2 hours. And I'm not saying I have to have a weekend bash with anybody, but the idea of getting us together at a rooftop or at a Cubs game where you might have a little pre-game fun, a little game fun, and then post-game fun, and kind of making a day of it, I think will be super exciting for all of our listeners. The party we had for the 100th episode, the amount of people we brought together was super exciting.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because it just felt in the short time you feel rushed, right? You have a 10-minute convo, they have to go somewhere else, and like you never get anything of substance. It's like speed dating. So, but yeah, this will be good. So if we haven't advertised it yet publicly on the Facebook page, or you've got an email blast, it will be coming soon. So we are looking forward to that now that we can get back in person again.
Yeah.
So Mark, we were talking about just getting rentals ready. I'm going through this right now with the house hacker I'm helping, and then also on some of my personal units that last 5%, right? You feel like you're done, but just doing that usability test, that functionality test of, hey, what's the water pressure? Do the appliances work? Does the stove turn on? Do all the doorknobs work? All those fun little things that you don't think of at all, but it's gonna be the first thing that a tenant's going to think of, and it's going to set you off on the wrong foot if you don't take the hour to do that walkthrough and figure out, all right, what has to happen before someone lives here. I know you guys do that a ton at GC. You guys are real good at that. When
we're heavy on the development side, we called it the last 10%. That always took us just as long to do the first 90%. But it's a lot of those little details that you probably didn't put into your initial scope with your general contractor. And then those things kind of get overlooked as you're just excited that the kitchen's in and the appliances got delivered yesterday. So that's one of them, right, too. The appliances getting hooked up. That's one that on the development side used to always get caught. But for us on the property management side, is that rent ready walkthrough, that 20 or 30 small item punch list. Whatever is loose right now will fall off later. So at least get it tightened up, or whatever is all these little things that could turn into, you might do 20 things on this small punch list. It'll only take you a handful of hours, but that prevents 2 or 3 work orders coming in, usually right away when the tenant moves in, when that door handle falls off or something like that. And then they just don't want to be charged for their security deposit. So there's a level of prevention on maintenance side, which is usually cheaper to do that 20 item list than do it a couple work orders. And also the quiet enjoyment of your tenant. They can move in. We really discount this a lot. No one likes to move. All of us know that. It's a horrible experience to move.
Yeah, don't add additional friction.
Yeah, you might be at a level of excitement because you're moving to a new city or something like that. And that's great. But the physical activity of taking everything you own from one place and moving it somewhere else is horrible. So then you just don't want to be that person that's in the way of like, yes, I moved in and I have no heat. I moved in and my hot water doesn't work. The first 2 showers I took in here will be cold. I remember this one time somebody told me, it's like every time I took a shower for 6 months, it reminded me of how the first 2 days I didn't have hot water when I moved in. And it's hard to, from a landlord standpoint, property manager standpoint, whatever it might be, it's hard to recover from some of those events. So making sure that you're covering all those things. And if you want, I can, what I'll do is I'll plug in a punch list that we use to show everybody. And you might have one too as well, Tom. But I think it just comes down to a checklist and walking the property.
Awesome. So do we get this and a housing provider tip of the week?
Yeah, that sounded like that was a housing provider tip of the week. But yeah, no. So I want to, my housing provider tip of the week, I want to give a shout out to Brian Peterman, who's actually a podcast listener here. And, he walked me through his couple of projects. He has a couple of 3 flats, and he's one unit at a time gone through and pretty much gutted them. And one thing that just kind of resonated with me is he just had so much thoughtfulness when it came to laying it out. He has the same amount of space in his 3 flat in Wrigleyville than everyone else on that block, but I bet you he's got the best floor plans. And, he has the walk-in. He used every inch for, both. Only got 2 bedrooms, but he's got 2 big walk-in closets for both bedrooms. He added a bathroom, and he was able to, he utilized pocket doors. There's just a lot of thoughtfulness that went into his floor plan. And I encourage everyone that, while you're under contract, right, that's been a tip in the past, and if you're buying something or if you have an existing project, leading up to that, put the time into figuring out a floor plan, especially if you are gutting. If you're taking this place down to studs, you got a clean slate. So make that worth the effort of the project and the usefulness for the next 100 years that's going to be in use.
I can't agree more, and I can go on for 20 minutes on this, so I'll just not say anything. So, because Mark, we got a heavy hitter alert here.
Yes, I'm excited.
All right, so first and foremost, thanks to our friends over at Cityscape. They were the ones who made the introduction here and made this possible. But today's guest has been featured in Forbes. She's a 2020 Cranes Business, Chicago's 20 in their 20s honoree, commissioner of the Cook County Commission on Social Innovation. Currently the Director of Development and External Affairs at Fairpoint Development. She's responsible for a wide range of responsibilities, but most predominantly, she's stewarding the $3.5 billion Bronzeville Lakefront development, which we're going to talk about. This is formerly the Michael Reese Hospital site. It's a 100-acre site poised to become the largest qualified opportunity zone development in the Midwest. It's going to be the life science headquarters of all Chicago. This is all the things you hear about Chicago. This is the good that is coming out of here, and we want to talk about it. Before that, worked for the Chicago Department of Aviation, advanced both O'Hare and Midway's international airports, $8.5 billion expansion. So no stranger to these large developments, and so excited to have her on the show. So without further ado, Morgan Malone, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you today.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Sorry for the delay there. I didn't lead you in right. So Morgan, we're going to spend a ton of time talking about Bronzeville, the Michael Reese Hospital site. For a lot of our listeners, a development like this, no one has any idea just the amount of activity that goes on behind the scenes, all the players involved. Before we get there, just for anyone who hasn't heard of you, can you give us just that 2-minute background?
Yeah, I actually came to real estate development from economic development and social impact. Prior to this, I'd done a little bit of everything in economic development, whether it was labor, whether it was working in community development and managing public-private partnerships and neighborhood revitalization in Inglewood, and then working in government. And so by the time I came to real estate, I had done all of those things, and private industry was one of the things that I hadn't done. And Farpoint really appealed to me because we had Bronzeville Lakefront, and at the time it didn't have a name, and we just got an LOI. There was still a lot of work to do, and it wasn't what it is today, but we had a mutual affection for and commitment to equitable development. And so I said to myself, okay, great. This is going to be an awesome opportunity to scale our impact, really affect people's lives in a community that I care about. It was the first community that I lived in the city of Chicago on my own. And I just really, really wanted to help bring the residents' vision to life and be that translator between the community and commercial real estate so that everyone is able to hear each other, but then also make a real difference in a tangible way.
Got it. And I goofed up. I said Fairpoint, not Farpoint, because I can't read, but so I apologize to our listeners out there. So and maybe I'm wrong here. Was this the same site where back in 2016, this was like our big Olympic push was going to be on the same plot of land, or was that two separate sites?
No, it's the same site. So a little bit of history. In around 1881, there was a Jewish man named Michael Reese living in San Francisco, and his family, Jewish immigrants, could not get healthcare in Chicago. So he'd never set foot in Chicago, but he endowed the Michael Reese Hospital system, and it was to serve all people, regardless of race, religion, creed, color. And what ended up happening was Michael Reese became a pioneer nationally in science, technology, and innovation research. We have baby incubators because of Michael Reese. We have subcutaneous shots because of Michael Reese. We have ambulances that are not horse-drawn because of Michael Reese, polio vaccine, you name it. All of those things were happening in Bronzeville. And so many people know of Bronzeville as a stop on the Great Migration, historic African-American history with a lot of art, history, and culture to be preserved. But we were also originally a science, technology, and innovation hub that was really just extremely advanced across the country and known for their theoretical work and their research. And so around 2009, you do so much care that you go into the red. And so what ended up happening was they sold to Medline. Medline wasn't able to manage it, and we wanted to win the Olympic bid. So the city bought the property, demolished everything except for one remaining building, and was hoping to essentially win the Olympic bid. We did not. Then we were hoping for the Amazon HQ2 bid, and we did not win that either. And so we had 48.5 acres on the lake in Bronzeville, adjacent to just south of downtown, and we needed to figure out what to do with it. So the city put together an RFP. The aldermen put together a Michael Reese Advisory Council. Over 300 residents applied to be on this council. About 30 were chosen to advise her and give technical expertise, cultural expertise, to be able to decide who should win this RFP. Farpoint ended up winning the RFP, and we won it in conjunction with 5 other companies. We are in a joint venture with Grit Chicago. So Grit Chicago, Global Research, Innovation, and Tourism is what Grit stands for. And we also like to say, get ready, it's time, because it really is. We have 5 companies that work with Farpoint. Farpoint is managing member. Obviously, we are an agnostic commercial real estate developer. We have McLaurin Development Partners, another minority-owned, African-American-owned real estate development firm that has done a lot of work south and west and also focuses on retail. We had Draper and Kramer. Many people know them for owning Lake Meadows and previously Prairie Shores, and they're obviously residential. We have Chicago Neighborhood Initiatives, which is a community development corporation who is currently known for 200 acres of development in Pullman, to include Amazon.
And past guests.
The Pullman Monument, the historic Pullman Monument that they just had opened, and that's federally designated. And then we have Bronzeville Community Development Partnership, which is a community-based organization. In 1989, Paula Robinson opened the first Bronzeville Tourism Center, Information and Tourism Center. And so she has been stewarding historical preservation, cultural preservation in Bronzeville for decades, and is also the lead steward of the Black Metropolis National Heritage Area, which is sponsored by Congressman Dick Durbin, Bobby Rush, in order to designate Bronzeville as a federal heritage area. And then last but certainly not least, we have Loop Capital Markets, which is an investment bank, also a minority-owned firm, and they focus on financing. They're our financing partner. And so when we put this diverse team together, we did it with intention. We wanted a community voice. We wanted financing. We wanted minority partnership. And we knew all of those things were going to matter to how we shaped the project. And so we won the RFP. And that
is awesome. So hold on. So I want to go back a couple points here to pull out. So first off, for our listeners who have just found us, recently, back in the day, episode 29, we had Sierra Boatwright. I know she's no longer with CNI, but it's a great episode about CNI and the revitalization of Pullman. So if you haven't heard that one, you're going to want to go back and listen to it. But let's go back to the actual RFP and putting all these different entities together, right? I come from that consulting background. We used to have to do this all the time on a much smaller scale, right? And play nicely in the sandbox and who's responsible and here's our RACI chart and all that fun stuff. Can you just talk through the complications, the challenges? It sounds so simple when you just rattle off, the 5 of us worked together and we won. But talk us through, there had to be some long nights, just some conflict, for lack of better words.
Well, we all bring something really unique to the table. And so this is the first time in the city of Chicago and nationally for a mega development to have not one, but 2 nonprofits, and one of them being a true community-based organization versus an organization that traditionally develops. Bronzeville Community Development Partnership does not traditionally develop. They inform community planning. And so that was very significant. And everyone comes from a different vantage point. Paula speaks community development. Dave Doig worked for the city, used to run the Park District, and also speaks community development, but understands transactional real estate. Zeb has been developing South and West, so he's been able to merge the two and always kind of had that understanding. Farpoint has traditionally been a commercial real estate developer, and our founders founded Sterling Bay. So people know them for Fulton Market. People know them for the West Loop, which was a totally different type of building of a district because it was a meatpacking district. There was no community here. And so while we blended all of these voices together, we really started to think about what can be the distinct roles that each person plays in this project for the long haul. What is the distinct value add that all of us bring? And so constructing the partnership wasn't the hard part. It's been more so, I would say, translating, because all of us speak different languages. All of us come from different places. Some people have different types of asset class real estate development. Some people have different scales of real estate development. Some people have never done real estate development. And so all of this is like a constant exercise in our ability to trust one another and hear one another for positive outcomes. And I'm really proud of where we've come and how far we've come and all the things that we've done, because really it's a better product because all of these voices are in the room, even if it takes more conversations to really understand one another.
Yep. During the RFP, did the city come out and say, hey, this is what we're building, this is what we want? Or did they just say, was it more along the lines of, here's the plot of land, give us your ideas? Like, how much of a blank canvas did you guys have to work with?
There was a high level expectation, right? They knew that, there's some obvious things, right? This is going to be a mixed use district. You're going to have some commercial, some retail, some resi. There's no expectation there's going to be any industrial here. There's no expectation there's going to be a casino here. Some of those things were really clear. Mm-hmm. They also were clear about the marshalling yards, which are adjacent to the 48.5 acres that the city owns from the Michael Reese campus. And the marshalling yards are currently where the Metropolitan Pier and Exposition Authority is doing their logistics. So all of the trucks that are going into MPA and McCormick are housed on the marshalling yards, which is about 26th to 31st, Lake Park to Lakeshore Drive. So It's that bucket right past the rails and right underneath the ped bridges. So working through that was the expectation. And so when you're being evaluated in feasibility, and vision and design from the city. And then you're also being evaluated by the alderman and her Michael Reese Advisory Council of community members saying, like, this is what we want in our neighborhood. This is what we don't. And they had expectations as well. And so it was really an exercise in just being responsive, but also showcasing the best vision.
Got it. And I know just from reading up on the project, there's a lot of things in there. It calls for, X amount of residential units, a certain percentage that's for reduced rents for lower incomes. I believe the developer has to pay X amount of taxes towards schools. Was that stuff that you guys all came up with to say, like, hey, we are part of the community? Or is that stuff that
was all post RFP? That was post selection.
All right. So you guys were instrumental in saying, like, hey, this is how we're going to be tied into the community here. That wasn't hammered down onto you from the city.
No. So it was a mix, actually. Once we were selected for the RFP, it took 2 years before we got a letter of intent from the city of Chicago. So
that's a long 2 years.
Yeah. We didn't get a letter of intent until fall of 2019 for an RFP we applied for in 2016.
Did you expect it to be that long? Like, that's a long time.
No one expected that it would be that long. And then, prior to receiving the LOI, of course, we're negotiating. So some of the community benefits that you just listed were codified in the LOI. So as we were figuring out what that looked like, that was a mutual negotiation between us, DPD, Alderman King, Michael Reese Advisory Council, getting to outcomes that we could all live with to move the project forward.
Got it. So was there, talking through the community, was there a lot of pushback? Were most people on board with, hey, we got to develop this? I know it probably wasn't all roses from the beginning.
Actually, I'm not even going to lie. We are the most beloved mega development in the city for a reason. Like, it's the truth. There's no negative press about us for a reason. We don't have community pushback for a reason. And it's because our model was way more intentional from the beginning. You cannot do a development of this size that has the potential to catalyze, transform, and deconstruct a community without community buy-in. You'll never get out of the ground. No investor at this scale wants to be attached to a project at this scale that has negative pushback, negative connotation, and also will rub off on their reputation. No investor and no tenant wants to come to that. So, like, managing community expectations and managing our response to it and making sure that we're partnering actively and engaging were critical. We really never received any pushback. We received critical feedback on elements that we negotiated with the community, but our model is different because when we were doing our planned development for this site, the community was included as a third-party negotiator on weekly calls with us and the city for like 8 months until we got to Plan Commission. So our planned development zoning uses, co-designed by community members. Our design guidelines in perpetuity that run with the land, co-developed with the community. So we don't have pushback because, like, you had a say in what happened here. You had a say, a visceral say, down to alleys, down to, where we're putting trash, right? And what's going to happen on this site district-wide that'll run with the land forever. And also, like, what is it going to look like? some of the like art, history, and culture codified in the plan development guidelines. So I don't have to fight with anyone about that because we've already committed to do it. We agreed to a community benefits agreement before anyone ever pushed us about it. No one had to fight us for that. And so we agreed to it and no one has asked us for it because we codified our community benefits in our land sale agreement. So you know what you're getting from us. And it's binding and it's with the city of Chicago. And so if ever we even sold a parcel of land to someone else, they still have to follow the land sale agreement terms. So we were all aligned. And so we really honestly just have had a good go of it.
That is so good. Like those last 2 minutes are so good. And I know most of our listeners are not on this scale, but even if you're just rehabbing a 3-unit, there's so many things you can pull from that last 2 minutes, right? Get the neighbors on your side, write them letters, let them know your exact intention, let them know you're going to be owning this building for a long time. You're fixing it up, get buy-in from those around you and everyone's life is better. Right. And everyone has good intentions, but you need to throw it out there and make it vocal and not just you. It's gotta be joint.
I have been on both sides of the table. I have been the community member in Inglewood, going back and forth with developers, trying to co-design something and saying what we want. I've also been the community member that had a development company come and say, hey, give us a letter of support. We'll put 10 grand in our budget for you. Take it. You need it. We'll come to a town hall meeting and that's it. Right? Like that for a lot of developers, small and large, is their approach. We know we need CRA. We're going to put a line item in there for whatever community organization to the tune of $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. Put us in front of your constituency so that we can at least have 1 to 3 meetings so we can say that we did it. And then write us a letter of support and we're done with you. And so, we didn't take that approach, but knowing that I had been the person engaged that way, and then also now being in a position to engage others, I knew that wasn't the approach. And then also being able to translate and hear, people have this idea that if you include the community, we all have to understand that there are things that we do not know. We have to understand the political, social, cultural dynamics of the city of Chicago. Everyone knows Chicago's segregated. Everyone knows that there has been systemic disinvestment and disenfranchisement for different populations in the city. That's what it is, right? So when you're moving into a community that is, for all intents and purposes, the Harlem of Chicago, the most historic Black neighborhood in Chicago that is still predominantly Black, there is no world where 50-year residents allow you to come into their community and do whatever you want to do on a side of land this large and say nothing, right? And so you can view it glass empty, half empty, and say, hey, it's a burden. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know anything about real estate, and make this an issue. Or you can engage community and have a better product, have something that you're proud of, have something you don't have pushback on, have something that you have a built-in user base to engage with, right? Because anything that I co-create, I'll use, right? So when we talk about communities of color, especially South, more often than not, somebody is going to say to you, well, what do the 135 say? And it's up to you what story you tell, right? You can say, oh man, 30,000 income, I don't know. Or you can say, within these census tracts, within this 1.5, 2 miles, there are X amount of households that make over $70,000 a year. Within these census tracts in immediate proximity of the site, there are this many households that they make this much and are going to be able to walk to the site, right? And so then for the folks who aren't able to walk to the site, for the folks who are still in this community or adjacent communities, what does that look like? And are they a part of this? And so when you open the door on day one, you've got people who are excited to be here, right? And so I think there's a mix of that. People have to understand that there's a business case to being more diverse. There's a business case to being more intentional. There's a business case here, right? When we were doing our plan development, we had to include Prairie Shores in the overall, because as we do the infrastructure work and the right-of-way work to do a new streetscape for this district, it's about 100 acres, we needed a little bit of land on Vernon that ran into Prairie Shores property. So in order for us to do the right of way, they had to be included in the plan development. When we included them in the planned development, they were like, the ownership team, we don't want to be involved if you all have negative press or perception. We want to be involved if you all are going to do the right thing. We understand the value of this. We understand the value for our property. We understand the value for this site, but like, you have to be on the up and up. Nobody wants the reputational risk. So there isn't a world probably where we would be able at a multi-billion-dollar site to get equity in the billions to do this if everyone in the city is saying they don't want it. Everyone in this community is saying they don't want it. Who wants to attach themselves to that? Because the whole goal here is social impact and being a catalytic ESG investment. You can't have social impact if the people who are surrounding the site socially don't want it. So you gotta balance that. I think there have been plenty of times as a community member that I remember being placated and being frustrated of like, why are you talking to me? Like, I just don't know anything about my own community. Like, I can't have a vision for my own community. When you have not had amenities, like very specific amenities that are akin to more well-resourced communities in Chicago, and someone finally comes to bring those amenities, you want to say of like, I know you think it would be cool to build an arcade, but I really still don't have a sit-down restaurant for a family of 4. Can you do that? That also provides rates and prices that my family can come and enjoy. We're talking about quality of life here, right? Like, the built environment is not a neutral act. It is not, we change places, we change lives. When you contribute to the built environment, you also impact migratory patterns. Like, this is not something that happens in a vacuum without 3, 4, 5 degrees of ripple effects that have generational impact. So you have all of these people who are saying, I live in a residential community, I'm minding my business, and now I need these things. What do you bring? It's cool to be a destination and fun for everyone else, but what about me and my do I have a dentist? What about the day-to-day things I need to survive? Do I have that before we do all of these things to bring in new people for them to enjoy? Are they going to go past this site? Does this site flow into the community in design and the community back into it? If someone comes to your site, what's the likelihood that they're going to come 6 blocks down and go to Ain't She Sweet? What's the likelihood that they're going to head down the street and go to some other restaurants, go to some other smaller boutiques on the east-west thoroughfares? And so it's just really not neutral. And developers have to understand that people live here. You're not just building the cool thing that you've always wanted to build for the rest of your life, and you're not just making a return. What you build is going to impact whether or not someone else has the things that they need to survive and thrive.
Morgan, that is nothing short than poetic. Like, that was awesome. Like, the last 3 minutes. You got a project this size. You guys approached it in a way from the get-go versus doing everything a developer wants and then conceding when needed. Because at that point, the neighborhood's already pissed. You're going to have people out of spite just resist you. So it's amazing what you guys have done and how you've approached this and the angles you approached it, almost to the point where I imagine some of these people are like, it's too good to be true, that they're doing all these things. And I almost feel like I need to fight for something, but there's nothing to fight for. So it's amazing, your approach. It's
crazy. Sorry to interrupt, but it is crazy. Like, all the research we've done on this, she's right. There's not one negative press on the development, on a $4 billion development. Like, I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but that's insane. Like, I get negative press for a 3 unit. Like, and I'm trying to do the right thing.
It was interesting. Our entire approach, when I came on, the first thing that I did with Sierra actually was we sat down. Actually, we had a subgroup on our overall JV that looked at every single touch point from pre-development all the way to post-leasing and infused a social impact and racial equity lens at every touch point. So when we do marketing, there are no stock photos. These are real residents. When we go out in the community, and we actually shoot the people who live and work and patronize here. And then we include them in our marketing materials. We understood that there were going to be people nationally who didn't know that Bronzeville is easily one of the safest communities in Chicago at large, regardless of race, but definitely on par with Beverly as like safest Black communities in the city. People are going to hear Chicago then they're going to hear South Side, and they're going to come to conclusions based on media narratives. And so there are a number of people in Chicago who don't even know what Bronzeville is, let alone nationally not knowing what Bronzeville is. But it's not our place to co-opt or design the story of Bronzeville when there are existing residents who have been bootstrapping neighborhood marketing for decades.
Just pull it out from them.
Trying to be heard. It's our opportunity for us to amplify the people who are here, amplify the work they're doing, amplify the best of this community and manage that. If you have ever driven around Bronzeville, some of the most impressive architectural housing stock in the city of Chicago. Impressive, especially if you start getting around 43rd, 47th and Ellis, insane. There are homes around 47th and Ellis that are gold plated on the outside. It's really like insane. Nobody knows. Nobody has any idea that those homes are there because they think Chicago, Southside has to be blight. I'm looking for a house in Bronzeville right now, and the house that has all the stuff that I want is not even close to the site, and it's $675. So I've had a number of friends, especially like young Black professionals, purchasing condos in the Bronzeville area for 400 plus. So like the interest is there, the population of folks who want to buy is there, and it's really a stable middle to upper middle class Black community. And so there's a little bit of history that people don't know about the city of Chicago that's important to point out, and it's about planning and design in the Burnham Plan. So when you look at the way the city of Chicago is planned, 2/3 of the city of Chicago, 250 square miles, is South Side. If you look southwest, which was historically Irish and Greek, Italian, the north-south thoroughfares are commercial. If you look on the north side and in the central business district, the north side thoroughfares are commercial. North-south thoroughfares are commercial. If you look on the southeast side, where mostly Black people settled after the Great Migration, the north-south thoroughfares are residential. So where are you going to get the amenities you need when you have no commercial thoroughfares? Yeah. After you are coming from downtown at about 21st Street, all of the north-south thoroughfares, King Drive, et cetera, turn residential, homes right on the street.
Yeah, right when you go over the bridge.
Yep. And so you have pockets of mixed use corner stores because that's all you can fit in a residential community when you're going east to west, because you're not going to be able to blend in a big commercial plaza or a big commercial spot east to west. So you run into those challenges where, like, with the exception of some pockets of State Street, it's all a residential community. And so you have to factor that in when you're trying to develop here. This is not, unless something miraculous happens, and I think we're all praying it doesn't, and somebody does like massive demo to a bunch of residential properties, there won't be any other major commercial spot plazas in this space. It's not designed that way. And so, so many of the folks who live here would tell you that this is a sign of systemic disinvestment and the use of the city's ability to do city urban planning to disenfranchise groups of people. Many of people will tell you about, obviously, the demolition of the housing projects, the Robert Taylor homes, et cetera, in Bronzeville, the building of the Eisenhower through this community and what that did for political bases, as well as, again, segregation and disenfranchisement. And so when you're looking at all of these things, they're not neutral acts that led up to this point. So our acts to amplify and enhance and contribute to can't be neutral either. They have to be additive and net positive.
Go ahead, Mark.
No, I was going to say, like, that's you almost have to work twice as hard to get that net positive effect.
And it's hard.
I can only imagine. I get stressed out thinking about bringing a project like this magnitude in the community and change, especially when you're saying stuff about the city, the South Side, there's so many hurdles and you have to overcome all those hurdles to get that net positive. So it's so true.
And I think if you are not close to the work, what you don't see the solutions to the hurdles, right? Like, if you aren't close to community groups, if you don't go to community meetings on your own because you're interested, if you don't participate in a community as a citizen. If you don't go to events, you don't see the joy. You don't see the kids playing in the street. You don't see the grandmas walking down the street that are safe. You don't see the like communal energy. You don't see the sense of belonging. You don't see the sense of pride. So when people ask you about safety, you don't have a point of reference to refer to because all you have is the media and you're not close to the people in the work. You have to do the work of cultural immersion and cultural appreciation, and so without that, you don't know what to say when someone says something to you. So it feels like a barrier or a hurdle. Whereas for me, when someone says something to me, I've got pictures to pull up on the spot from my phone from places that I've been. I've got photos, I've got restaurants to refer to, and I can say, oh, you're going to get a great wrap here. You're going to get an awesome smoothie here. You're going to get a great dinner here. Oh, and did you know this restaurant has awesome seafood and they're also syndicated in Mariano's, so you can also have it at home. Like, those are the things that I would be able to say quickly, whereas like there are so many other folks who wouldn't be able to do that because they're not close. So everything just looks like a burden. If you're just looking at the 1-3-5s, you don't know what to say. If you're not thinking critically about how data and calling questions are used to be additive and also telling qualitative stories as opposed to quantitative stories, you don't know what to say. And you're looking at a credit board and you're looking at, investors and they're looking at you and you're looking like, hey, just take a chance. I don't know. That's not what this says, And so it's an interesting dynamic of the onus of responsibility of the real estate developer, who we choose to be in a space, who we choose to be as a giant, right? As an influencer. I could, with our influence in this group, redefine and redesign what Bronzeville is, what it means, what the narrative is to the entire country. Because I'm the loudest voice. I've got the biggest budget. I could completely not include the community, say, this is the story of Bronzeville, put whatever pictures I want to put together, whatever visuals I want to put together, bring people to Bronzeville from Lakeshore as opposed to 9094. And then it's whatever I say it is, because I've got the most money to be the loudest voice. And then what happens to the other people who have spent decades and generations building this culture? When people talk about gentrification, they get scared, right? Like it's, oh my God, you're going to displace us, and affordability. Gentrification is not just displacement, physical displacement. It's cultural erasure, right? And so you have so many people saying, preserve our art, preserve our history, preserve our culture. That is the biggest push. And then outside of that, it's make sure this is multi-generational, make sure there's multi-generational interaction, make sure you have a variety of assets, make sure we get the quality of life amenities that we need and the resources we currently don't have. So, you have all of that to balance. And you run into this all being much easier if you just listen and value people and their experiences from the heart, not because it's part of your marketing budget, not because it creates a good story for you to raise money, but literally and genuinely because you care.
All my questions seem bad after that. I don't know.
I got a good one. So Morgan, you talked about the negative media press in Chicago, South Side, and go ahead and get angry with this response here. You're in an elevator with someone, you're saying, this is what I'm doing. And that person knows nothing about Bronzeville and says, oh, what, geez, what are you doing there? Like you have 20 seconds to, not slap the guy, but, verbally slap him with like, no, this is what's going down. What is your response there? Because me and Mark get very upset with the national media news on Chicago. It's the whole reason we have a podcast here talking about all the great things happening, and we put so much time and effort into it. So we'd love to get your take on it, because you're very passionate, you're very inspiring here. So we'd love to get your answer there, because go for it.
The first thing I ask people is, have you been? Have you been to Bronzeville? Have you patronized in Bronzeville? Have you had a meal in Bronzeville? Do you actually even know what you're talking about? Right? Like, before we can get into debating the merit of your argument, do you even have one? And so there's that. More often than not, most people who would say that couldn't name 3 restaurants in Bronzeville. And they would say, well, I don't want to go there. What do you mean? Police headquarters on 35th and in Michigan. What are you talking about? Indiana. What are you talking about? Like, Bronzeville has a university, has a significant amount of retail, has a significant amount of cultural institutions, is adjacent to the largest convention center in the Western Hemisphere, is like just north of the University of Chicago, has the police headquarters for the entire city. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's so good.
What could you possibly be talking about? And so I think there's that, right? Like, you just don't even know.
That's
so good. Mark, sorry, I jumped in. Go ahead.
No, that's I love the confidence you have in answering that, and that just speaks to how qualified you are to head up this type of project for this neighborhood, and that's why this project will go off the ground versus so many other mega projects that are only just headlines in the paper. So it's pretty cool to see that.
We literally just opened a tennis center that takes professional matches in Bronzeville on 50th and State. So like, honestly, there's really no argument to be had. And it's so annoying because it's one of those things where you're looking at people like, do you hear yourself?
It's
do you wake up in the morning and are you comfortable with the things that come out of your mouth? Because it sounds crazy.
That's so good. So through this process, you have experience with these large mega developments. What has been probably the biggest curveball thrown your way? Like, this has been, for up to this point, a smooth project. Like, we know that, like, it's from the press releases, from everything we've been hearing. But what's maybe like the one thing that might've kept you up at night? The one like, oh man, we did not think of that you guys had to pivot and adjust on.
I would say the thing that is hardest about this project, you have an idea of what the market's going to do. You have an idea of what the market's going to bear. You have an idea, if you've been doing this long enough, of what an investor is going to say to you. You have an idea of what the construction process is going to be like. And this is a site with, 98% new construction, with the exception of the one remaining building. The biggest thing is the dynamic of actually doing equitable development at a district of this scale. Like, the thing that really keeps me up at night is whether or not the impact we do will be enough. I agonize about that every day. Will it be enough? Will it be enough? Because what you realize very quickly in trying to do equitable development is that it is only partially dependent on the developer. For any positive impact you want to have an impact ecosystem. So, for example, we've made all of these commitments. And so 10% of the site's retail will be reduced by 20% for small and local businesses. Cool. I need to start in the next 60 days incubating small local businesses and providing them with relationships to microfinance groups, which fortunately one of our partners in this deal, Chicago Neighborhood Initiatives, has a microfinance group called Greenwood Archer. Because if you are used to your location being in Bronzeville retail on an east-west street, that's very different than a new construction retail location that you can't get around construction costs. So unless we're able to bring costs down, you're going to pay not adaptive reuse rates to be in a new construction building. So who's going to help you with the build-out costs? What nonprofit is going to support you in negotiating leasing and understanding leasing? What business development organizations are going to support you in back of house, whether that is expanding to a new location, starting your location, doing 2 locations, franchising? I need this entire group of wraparound supports to push you through this whole process to ensure that you, A, are getting a lease that you can maintain, B, are able to actually be in this site, and C, have everything that you need and have maximized the lead time so that when we start construction on our first building this time next year, and we start to open up the F&B and we start looking for people to be in the food and beverage spots, late 23, top of 24, you're ready. Because that's equity, right? Equity is shifting power dynamics. Equity is barrier removal and reduction. So for every single commitment I've made, I need X amount of partners to fill either service gaps or support gaps to ensure that the people that I'm trying to target can even participate at all. I can do 65% minority contracting on this site. For the folks who are not certified, who's going to get them certified? Who's going to do the clinics to ensure that the minority contractors who want to be on the site, who have the experience, but are not certified, get certified? Who is going to be the person to help with back of house support, bonding, insurance? What do we put in our contracts to ensure that small businesses can get on the site? How do we unbundle contracts to ensure that small businesses have an opportunity? All of that is process. All of that is operations. All of that is partnerships. And you need all of that for every one commitment. And I've got 20 commitments. $50,000 a parcel in art. What art? I'm in a community that cares about art, culture, and history. Where is the multi-generational art collective? How am I procuring art from local artists? Who is in charge of that? How do we rotate the leasing of that art? How do artists build wealth by getting paid off the leasing of their art with their art being circulated in the buildings of the site? Like, this is all like, you can say you want to be impactful and you can make whatever commitment you want, but the impact and the equity is in the execution. It's not in your willingness to make the commitment. I have a designer on this site right now who has been with SOM, who is one of our master planner architects, for 14 years. He started as an intern. Now he's a senior urban designer working on the site. He has been on the site for 10 years. How do I do 1,000 more of that?
Yeah.
When we mandate that all of our contractors have to do internships, what do those look like? Are they quality? Are they experiential? Do the students who go through them build new relationships and tangible skills? And if I do an internship that's a paid internship, every year in high school and every year in college, where is the direct placement opportunity for me with a company that is either currently located on the site or that I interned with that helped to build the site? What does that look like? All of that stuff. You can't just say, I gave out internships, I tried to do an opportunity. You can't just say, I created jobs. What jobs? What do they look like? Who's doing what types of jobs? Are the people who are most impacted in these roles? This is an opportunity for people who are currently located downtown because they thought they wanted credibility to have an opportunity to move into an office building in their community. This is an opportunity for all of this stuff for people who are, working and want to switch opportunities, who are underemployed or unemployed to get a new opportunity. We started a workforce portal where you can upload not just your resume, but your life experience. And then when you have a job come available, it'll read your profile, tell you, hey, you're 60% or 70% prepared for this role. And then here's what will get you to 100%. And it'll direct you to services. It'll direct you to workforce training programs or certificates or city college programs. All of that stuff you had to do up front. So that's the piece that keeps me up is, will the efforts be enough? Even if I'm able to organize all of the stuff, will all the other players come to the table? Will philanthropy organize themselves to help pay for the social impact? Because private equity is not going to pay for that. Will government organize themselves in redirecting program dollars? So that way, I don't need new money from you. I need the dollars you're already spending to be spent with intention. If I'm going to do bike lanes on the site with the new streetscape and CDOT is doing 10 new miles of bike lane per neighborhood, connect your 10 miles to the miles that I'm building. Maximize opportunity for everyone in this community and not just stops within the borders of this site. You need to reimagine public-private partnership to pull that off. I need private corporations who want to be on the site to be socially responsible and care about our theme of the healthy community of the future. I need community organizations to fill service gaps. I need elected officials to do policy. I got 36 months before 78 in some ways underway, One Central in some ways underway. We are underway. The Obama Presidential Center is underway. We're talking dumping billions of dollars between 18th and 79th Street with nearly very little notice. And probably by the time we get our first building out of the ground and the Obama Presidential Center will be open. And probably the casino will be started somewhere. And if it's at the 78 or One Central. So now here we are with, let's say, a $7 billion investment on the Southeast side overnight. What does that mean for assessed valuation? I need policy to help manage cost of living. And so like all of us have to do a thing in our own way at the exact same time to pull from the same side of the rope in order for this to work. And so like, that is the tricky part. I fear all the time that I'm going to wake up one day, I'm going to look at Bronzeville Lakefront. It'll be beautiful. It'll have amenities, but nobody who looks like me or nobody who lives in the immediate area will be able to access it, will be able to afford to live in it, will be able to afford to live where they currently are because of the rise in tax rates. You know, I worry about that all the time. Will it be pretty and innovative and this cool thing that people don't see themselves in? Everyone wants stuff. We've been asking for stuff for generations. But then like, when we get the stuff, have we done everything we can to ensure that I can enjoy it? Or am I going to be displaced? And that's not going to be because we're displacing people. There's no one on the site, but we can't manage affordability outside of the boundaries of the site. So like somebody's got to do that work.
That's so much, man. That's so deep.
So, it's hard. It's complex.
You're carrying a lot on your shoulders.
I was gonna say, how much coffee do you drink a day?
Yeah.
Every morning I go to Starbucks and I get a venti and I get a quad shot every morning.
Sounds about right.
You are carrying so much on your shoulders. And when you look back 10 years from now, you're going to be amazed how you pull it off. Like, so it's so exciting. I can't wait to, you just from the hour I spent with you here, like there's no doubt you're not going to pull this off. So it's pretty cool. And it'll be exciting to look back for you because you're going to do it. And this is awesome.
Yeah, this is we got to pump this episode out here, Mark. This is all the feel good we always want to get out to the world. This is it here.
Well, the other thing that you're doing First Mortgage is you're making the rest of our short-term goals really look easy. So, so like I know the couple projects I was looking at around the office done. I was like, all right, this is easy now. Like compared to what Morgan's taking on. So
I'm not changing the community.
Yeah,
you know, and that's the thing, right? Is like when you are walking into a community that like is like Gwendolyn Brooks, Pulitzer Prize winner, poetry, right? Like you got, all of these titans who came through Bronzeville, lived in Bronzeville, grew in Bronzeville. That is the big thing. You know, I saw an article probably maybe a month or two ago that was like, is Bronzeville going to be the next Lincoln Park? I don't know that the residents want Bronzeville to be the next Lincoln Park. And so it might be the next Lincoln Park in rates. I mean, before we even get going, the housing stock in Bronzeville, we've talked about this, is already through the roof. We're past, are you going to get an investment property in Bronzeville? Like, we're past that, So I think it's all of these things are kind of slipping through our fingers. And so there are real questions from a lot of people about like, what is north of 50th Street going to be in the next 6 years, 8 years? Who does this become attractive to? And then for the vacancies and the new construction buildings that are coming to Bronzeville, what happens? And how much will the rent be? And how much will it be to purchase? And so right now, home ownership in Bronzeville is nearly untenable. Obviously, I mean, I get paid well. And I'm looking at houses like, $675, $750, right? And so imagine, a family, a young family of like 3, 4, 35-year-olds looking to be in this community, got a neighborhood school, looking to invest in it and get in early. Where are you going to find a condo? Even garden units are going for $450. 2-bedroom garden units are going for $450 in Bronzeville, as far as like 46 and Champlain. What do you do then? So I think there's the city, and it's not just Bronzeville, it's across the city. And in Illinois too, because people are leaving in droves, we really got to get real about cost of living and have a comprehensive approach. People are spending half of their income on rent and mortgage, just like they're spending it on healthcare, transportation for a family of 5, childcare, et cetera, generational debt, et cetera. So like, there's something to be said for some of the initiatives that are happening right now. The assessor's office tried really hard to get data from the state and the city so that they could do automatic enrollment and exemptions. It hasn't happened yet, right? But like, if I'm a senior and I bought my house for like 80, 90, 50 years ago. And now here it's worth 1.2. I'm on the hook for 1.2 valuation, taxes too. And I'm retired on a fixed income with Social Security. Where's it supposed to come from? You need the auto enroll because people don't intuitively know how to experience government and what to do. And so that's for, multi-unit landlords. That's for single family homeowners. All of this stuff has to be figured out. So the call to action is like, everyone get your butt in gear. And we got 36 months to like meet on a weekly basis and workshop this and let's go. That's the work.
Yeah, it's so good. Mark, we got to wrap, but Morgan, appreciate it. This is so insightful. Just living with a purpose.
Thank you. I loved it. I had such an awesome time talking to you guys, even though I did most of the talking. I'm sorry.
No, that's why you're here. No one wants to hear me and Mark ramble on.
Oh, good. You get to answer our wrap-up questions now. So what is yours or your group's competitive advantage of bringing a mega project to fruition here and getting it done to the finish line?
Yeah, I think one, catalytic ESG investment. So if you are a person who wants to invest, wants to see a return, and also wants to do good, this is the opportunity. Two, ecosystem, education, eds and meds, all immediate proximity. So if you need to go to the hospital, there. If you need a good school, there. If you want to go to college, University of Chicago, IIT, there. All on the lake, quick access to mobility. Convention, you've got the South Loop, you've got a convention center. So all of the big amenities that you would be looking for to be able to survive in a community or within a region are there.
Awesome.
All right. So we have a lot of listeners who are looking to buy their first property here in Chicago. So to that person, what is the one piece of advice you would tell them before they buy that first property here in Chicago?
If you are an investor and you are looking to purchase a property, think about a pathway for you to do more than for your tenants than take their money. I have a good friend who has purchased a few 3-6 flats in Woodlawn, and he actually has like a little bit of an affordable housing, like tenant to owner program for his tenants. So he doesn't just like invest in these folks and then allow them to live here and pay a certain amount of rent. He also helps them get themselves together so that they can purchase a property and do the same thing for someone else. So think critically about like being more than transactional. That's what the world needs. A little bit of humanity and a little bit of care if everyone gets somewhere to live. Love it.
All right. You don't have to, you have about 36 months before you can do anything fun, but what would you do for fun 37 months from
now? I just got back from 6 weeks in Kenya.
Whoa,
working
nice.
remotely and also living in Kenya and trying things. So, and learning and building new partnerships and all of that. So that'll be my big fun thing is travel. I'm a global traveler. I'm also in a program with the World Economic Forum. So I'm always going to new cities and excited about that. So that'll be what I'll be doing for fun throughout. Plus, this is fun.
Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you. All right. So what is, you can pick one or multiple, but what is a good book, podcast, or self-development activity that you would recommend to our listeners?
Sorry, don't use that. Book, podcast, or self-development. Podcast, Undone, Gimlet Media. If you like slow journalism, if you care, slow journalism is essentially about the fact that a news story will come out and then nobody else hears anything else about it. So you don't even know what happened. So their podcast has a really interesting episode called Disco Demolition Night about the night we got house music and we burned a bunch of records at Comiskey. So
nice.
Check it out. If you like Chicago and you care about journalism and you also want to hear a full story, that's the one. Disco Demolition Night.
Alex Martinez, who handles all our notes for us and we're very grateful for, we'll make sure he links that in the show notes.
All right. Besides yourself, name one person in your local network you'd highly recommend to other real estate investors here in Chicago.
So many people come to mind. In what context? Just so I know, what role are you looking for?
Whether it be mentorship to learn from, a good mortgage guy, a good appraiser, whatever it might be. Just anyone around the industry.
Yeah. Langdon Neal. Neal and Leroy, great attorney, great real estate attorney. I would recommend everybody work with Langdon.
Awesome.
Great. Maureen, this is a fantastic episode. Thank you so much. You have provided just a ton of value and insightfulness to our listeners. We will link to all your sites so they can learn more about you. is there any way that they can provide value to you?
Yeah. Tell your friends about us. Talk positively about Bronzeville. Come to Bronzeville. Go to Boxville on 51st and Prairie and buy some goods. Start to experience the community and spend money in the community. Spend money with us and relocate to our site and be a tenant. Let us share what we're doing with your contractor friends so they can get uploaded to our vendor portal. We need every kind of service provider. This project is so big that we need work services, we need construction contractors, we need professional services. If you have a business that is basically like doing nearly anything, you probably will need it at some point. So please, please, please upload to the vendor portal. And then if you know anyone who's looking for a role, please have them upload to our workforce portal. So those are the more immediate things. Oh, and you can always just give us money and invest in us too if anyone's got $1 billion laying around.
We're working on it. All right. And so we end with the Chicago fact. And Mark, I made this one a little challenging, but it's multiple choice. Morgan, I'll give you
before you forget. So we're going to start today, sponsored by Renovo.
Oh yeah.
Anybody that comes onto our merch store on our website, straightupchicagoinvestor.com, buys Straight Up Chicago Investor shirts or anything. We still have masks. I think those are going away, but we'll pick a name randomly. And if I get the question right, we'll have a sponsor right now. This week, Renovo sponsors, you get a $100 gift card. And I think it'll be just like an Amazon or something like that. So this question is Shante Williams out of East Woodlawn. So she bought a shirt and a sweatshirt. So bring the question on, Shante.
I forgot we're doing this. And Shante, I apologize. I made it tough. I would have given you a layup. All right. So it's screw. Well, if he doesn't get it right, we'll give you $50. All right. So Bronzeville is home of the Robert W. Rolston houses, and they are famous because, and your choices are A, they were the first buildings built in the Bronzeville neighborhood. B, they were owned and operated by Nat King Cole and his hair. C, they're the first Chicago buildings to obtain historical society status. Or D, they're the only row homes built by Franklin Lloyd Wright.
Franklin Lloyd Wright.
You got it. Did you know that or you just guessed it?
No, I knew that. I know my history, especially Southside. So awesome.
Man, yes. Good stuff, Mark. That was good.
You win.
I feel bad. I was going to lose.
Dante, you're officially our first Chicago Fact podcast or question winner. So that's awesome. So, all right, Morgan, thank you very much. What an awesome episode. We'll talk offline about other ways we can help you as well too. Tom, thank you as always. Listeners, we've reconfigured the website a little here. We got just lining up the resources to be a little cleaner. We've added a couple new resources. So visit straightupchicagoinvestor.com. We'll also have a lot of great show notes and links from this podcast episode as well on there too. So Morgan, thank you. Tom, thank you. Everyone else, we'll see you next week.
Thanks all.